you speak of the World Core Curriculum. Which levels of education concerns and the application of the World Core Curriculum makes really a difference from school to school?
Well, the World Core Curriculum has a wide range of applications. And it seems to me that one of the most important efforts of the World Core Curriculum is designed to help create global citizens. In other words, young people with a world view. Certainly there is no more urgent effort today. And with that in mind, the curriculum is developed to look at the world in the biggest way possible. As Dr. Mueller puts it, from the micro, from the smallest, to the macro, the largest. Today meaning something even much smaller than atoms, because when the World Core Curriculum was developed, we thought the atom was the smallest unit. We now know that there's something much, much smaller than that. On the other hand, not many years ago, we thought Pluto was practically at the end of the universe, and now we talk about 1 billion light years beyond. And so you might say it's expanding. The curriculum itself, the emphasis itself, by the very nature of life, is expanding. And this is the value of the World Core Curriculum, because as it expands, people increase their, not only their abilities to think more globally, because today we live in a very global world, an interactive world that one nation depends on another. I mean, for example, right now we know that because the economy of one country affects the economy of the rest of the world. And this has never been more true. And this is also true in all other areas, security. But it is the very firm, it's my very firm belief, and in the very foundation of the World Core Curriculum, that we develop and educate students who think in a different way. In other words, they think in a global way of how we become independent, interdependent in the world, and how we need to rely on each other, not only in financial and social matters, but in terms of security and all other matters, particularly the urgency today that we have with the whole problems of the environment.
I'd like to ask you why, according to your opinion, such a valuable tool as the World Core Curriculum is not in the mainstream of schools and universities so far.
Well, like there have been many wonderful educational systems developed that also never became mainstream. A lot of it has to be with the way things have always been done. Unfortunately, many of the national education systems, public education, for example, is very slow to change and is very resistant to change. Mm-hmm. This is the way it has always been done. This is the way it's always going to be done. And one has to overcome that kind of mentality, both at a physical and at a social level, to be able to create change. And so what I think we need to do is have many more opportunities to create or implement, both create and implement this kind of curriculum. And what it's going to take, though, is national leadership to do this. It is not going to be an easy task, because we are talking about a fundamental change that is going to be required in the education systems of the world, not only here but everywhere else.
But for the sake of the people who watch us now, mm-hmm. could you tell us in short, what exactly is the World Core Curriculum?
The World Core,
might be, let's say, the fundamental principles.
The fundamental principles of the World Core Curriculum are based on what we call four harmonies. And these are an integrated system you know, that relate the spiritual, the social, the spirit, the different forms of thinking together. And if you think of it like almost a whirlwind twirling up, encompassing all of these harmonies into a single unified unit. And this unit then is to expand the thinking of students, increase their ability to think on a much wider scale and at a much deeper level. Again, many of the national education systems have a long way to catch up to this kind of thinking, but it is essential if we're going to have a new education system that works like it should in creating global citizens, that we have the World Core Curriculum and programs like it.
So do you believe that when we are living in the moment, for example, here, European Union, still any country is fighting for its own educational system, and it comes a little to work for European Union consciousness. So how we can go so much further and think for the citizen of the world, which is, as you tell me, the goal of the World Core Curriculum.
Well, I mean, and that's exactly the point, is to how do we create a system that gets beyond the present thinking that has locked us into the system that we now have. The problem still is, here as I understand it, in the European Union, but also everywhere else in the world, is we are still faced with the problem of nationalism, where the nation state becomes more important than the larger. And this is one of the very basic problems of the United Nations, for example, which is just a larger, a macro, you know, of the world, so to speak, where everybody wants their say and thinks that they have the proper and correct answers to the problems. Well, what has to be done is there has to be what I call middle ground at the UN, as well as, you know, the European Union and everywhere else, is we have to be willing to, I think, change our thinking from being nationalistic to thinking globally. This is a very large leap for most countries.